and his head of story marketing, Melissa Huseman. And so we just got off. I was running just a tad late. And then Be Live has become such a popular format, apparently, platform, that it wouldn't let me on. They were experiencing high call volume. So appreciate you hanging on. It's 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes after 10. Welcome to today's show. Great to have you here. Also want to give a shout out to my pops. My dad turns 91 years old today. Happy birthday, Keith Howell, up in Woodinville, Washington. You are like the greatest man ever in my life. I've been really blessed to have wonderful parents, and I just wanted to say a happy birthday to you, Dad. Just incredible, going strong. I'm sure you hit Starbucks down in Woodinville, had your breakfast coffee with Gordy and the guys, and now maybe you're back up at the happy H doing your thing. But anyways, I hope you have a terrific, happy birthday. Also want to do a little shout out to a new member of the Business of Story team. Very fortunate to have Brian Adolph out of Philadelphia join us. He's got a company out there that is producing podcasts, and Brian has joined us, the production team here at Business of Story, and we have a somewhat new format coming out for you on Sunday. My good friend Greg Head here in town, who is the head of marketing for Infusionsoft, helped grow that company to $100 million in annual sales, joins us on Business of Story on Sunday in our new episode next week. And it's the first show coming out of Brian's studio. So it's really great to have Brian and his group working with us to pull all that together. And I hope you love the new format. Now, today, we are all about the Business of Story cycle system. We are on chapter 5. In chapter 5 is what we call the story SWOT analysis. Now, you're familiar with the story system, right? We began our first show, your backstory, which in watching that helped you identify what is the backstory in your brand story. It is what do you do better than anybody else in the world, anybody else in your marketplace anyways. So what is your number one position statement in terms of features, functions, and benefits that you deliver better than anybody else? Act 2, who's your hero? Ooh, there we go. Who's your hero is all about your customers, placing them at the center of the story. So what it is that you do best and who cares. Act 3 is what's at stake for them. So what is it that they stand to gain by adopting you, your brand story, and your product or service, and what do they stand to lose by doing absolutely nothing about remaining in status quo? Now, you can't keep them in status quo because you either have to be the disruption in the marketplace or responding to a disruption in the marketplace to be the most timely, relevant, and urgent product offering in your market segment to back up your number one position in the marketplace. So that's where number 4 comes in. We talked about last week, disruption, leading to your unique value proposition. So now we are humanizing that number one position in the marketplace and creating a unique value proposition that very quickly describes how you are the most relevant, urgent, and timely offering in the marketplace. Today, we are going to talk about your story SWOT analysis. And what I mean by that is not necessarily the SWOT analysis as you normally know it. You know, SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Although I want you to be thinking about that because story tension is everything. In fact, when I think about story SWOT analysis, I think about story with obvious tension. Your story must have obvious tension. This guy's got some obvious tension going on here too. And why that is hugely important, it is looking at the obstacles and antagonists that are in your story. So my question to you is, what are the obstacles and antagonists, or maybe even more theatrically put, what are the villains, fog, and crevasses that stand in your way as a brand to achieve what you want? And what are the villains, fog, and crevasses that are standing in the way of your audiences, your customers, connecting with you, adopting your brand, and helping them get what they want? So let me know what those are. Now, number 1, let's start with villains. Chapter 5, villains. We know this villain. Villains, what are they with you and your brand? Think about the competition. Now, it, again, might be a little bit overhyped to call them villains, but we all have competition that are trying to erode our market share so that they can have more. Who are these villains in your life, and how do you position yourself against them and outflank them so you make sure to get what is rightfully yours and then some in market share? So I want you to be thinking about the villains. Who are the villains in your life? Then I want you to think about the fog. Then the fog are the blind spots. The fog is, what is it that you don't know about your business, about your market, about what's happening out there. We all have these blind spots, and we need to get very acutely aware of what they are so that we can literally clear the fog out of our brand stories and our brand journeys and step into and share the most powerful stories we possibly can. But you know what? Your audiences, they have fog about what you have to offer. So you have to get really crystal clear on what is it that they don't know about you that you need to reveal to them through the fog of war, of being alive, of living in this world of abundance, of being blasted at 24/7 on the internet. How do you carve through all of that with your brand story? And really the only way to do that is with a crystal clear brand story to help them get through the fog. So we have villains, we have fog, and you know what else we have? We have crevasses. We are all there. We say one thing, but we do something else. What are the crevasses that you are dealing with? Now, this could be in your story that you were trying to live into a new aspirational story, and that's wonderful, but you don't have production or delivery or customer service keeping pace with you. So you become this poor dude stretched across the crevasse of what is and what could be. Now, that's where you use brand storytelling to be able to really understand what the gaps are in your story, how to bridge those gaps so that you can, as a company, authentically deliver on the promises you make in your storytelling. Think about the crevasses in your customer's life as well. They have gaps that you are trying to help bridge from. This comes from that idea of the disruption in the marketplace, and something's happened and they want something more. That's where your brand offering comes in. But there may be a gap from them buying into you. It could be a dollar gap. Maybe it's too expensive, at least in their minds. Maybe it's a time gap. They just don't have the time to track it down. It's a convenience gap. Maybe you're not as convenient as you need to be for them to be able to take advantage of what you have to offer. These are all the things that I want you to look at when you are going through the story cycle system and you are in Chapter 5. And Chapter 5, again, is villains, fog, and crevasses. By the way, relative to villains, I talked about a couple of them. You got the outside, you got the external villains in your competition. You have internal villains inside your organization too, and those are folks not all pulling in the same direction because they don't have the brand story straight. There's one other villain that you really have to watch out for, and it's probably the most powerful villain of all, and it's the villain that goes on between your ears, because remember, fear is often our most powerful foil that gets in the way, that thwarts our advancements on anything and everything we are trying to do in building our brands and helping customers, helping our employees, our shareholders, and our stakeholders truly get what they want first. And when we go out of our way to help them get that, then they will literally go out of their way to help us get what we want on our journeys. So that's it for today's show. I just want you to be thinking about that. And by the way, I did want to go back to this photo real quick. I love this guy. This guy was created by James Popsis. He is a visual storyteller, Photoshop artist out of Wales, England. And I came across his work a few weeks ago when I was hanging out in my sunroom, having a cup of coffee one Sunday morning, and it popped up on Board Panda. And his Photoshop work just cracked me up. He has a brilliant way of taking irony and juxtaposition and creating visual stories out of it that really cut through the heart, grab your attention, and leave you laughing. And I just love that. Well, James is kind enough to come on Business of Story. We have him on in a couple weeks where he talked about how he goes about capturing these images and how you can start using juxtaposition and irony in your business storytelling to help you stand out. So watch for James Popsis coming up in a couple weeks. Just have a ton going. Really glad to have you here. I hope you've had a wonderful week and are looking forward to an even better weekend. So let's see, do you have any questions? Hi, Michael. Glad to have you here. You have my eternal respect for working Snidely Whiplash into your workshop. Does that make you Dudley Do-Right? Well, I hope so. You would have to answer that, Michael. So I know Michael's a good friend of ours, was down here in Phoenix. He recently just moved up to the Seattle area, and he's starting a new venture up there. How's it going for you? Are you still on board here, Michael? Shoot me a note. Let me know how it's going. Anyways, I'll be back here again next week. I am going to be in Telluride. Thank goodness we're leaving for a week's worth of skiing and some work up there. So you won't be seeing my typical surrounds back here. We will be up in the mountains somewhere, and that'll be interesting how I'm going to pull off my show from Telluride ski area in Colorado next week. But thank you for joining, and I hope to see you again next week. In the meantime, have a fantastic weekend. Take care.